which means that it's sort of never ending, right? And it's something that you definitely would want to break down into pieces. And that's something we didn't really talk about yesterday either. When you're training, you guys, it's basically a dress rehearsal, right? For the big gig on the weekend. So one of the things that you want to be very conscientious of is making sure that you are training the right things, right? That you are not allowing things to go on that you don't want to have happen on that weekend. So it's being very willing to sort of step outside of yourself and notice when things didn't go exactly right and stopping there and fixing that little piece rather than looking at the big picture, right? So Stacey says we're going to do 1 through 10, and for whatever reason you're having a boatload of trouble getting your dog from 1 to 2, because that can happen, right? Then the rest of it doesn't matter at all. It just falls away, right? And then you have to put all of your thought process and your emphasis and your training skills and all of that on that issue that's happening at 1 to 2. And when you get that resolved, then you can go on, right? But I always work little pieces. I can't tell you when is the last time I set up a course and actually went and ran the course. I set up courses because within that course, I put in challenges that I want to work on, all right? And I do it in a course situation so that it forces me to think about how would I get into this and how would I get out of it, right? Based on where you're coming from, based on what goes next. But I'm not necessarily interested in running the whole course until I've worked on the skill sets that I've sort of set up for myself, right? Eventually I generally try to put it together, because that's our reward, right? Let's see if I actually got these pieces to a point where I can put them together, because that, again, is ultimately what's happening when you get to the trial, is taking all these little pieces and putting them together, all right? But it's hard for people. You get so wrapped up in whatever the exercise is, whether it's something that someone else sets up for you or something you set up yourself, and we do a lot of sort of damage control and saving of things as you go along. Do you understand what I'm talking about? You know, like you had a wide turn, and you knew it was a wide turn, but you just, whatever, on to the next thing. Well, I don't want wide turns. So every time I practice a wide turn, it just means that it's going to be that much harder for me to expect something else in a different situation, right? So whatever you're practicing, somebody said a while back, and it was actually a really good, it just stuck, you know how certain things just stick in your head, and she had said, don't go out to practice with your dog, go out to train. And I'd never really thought of it that way, and a lot of people talk about practicing, but when you practice, you're just practicing what you already do. So you're practicing all your mistakes, you're practicing all the things, go out to train. Because when you're training, you're trying to build, you're trying to fix, you're trying to improve, you're trying to maintain, but don't practice, train. I like that, makes a lot of sense. So, with that said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh gosh, I'm trying to figure out where the biggest, I actually think 1, 2, 3, 4 presents its own set of problems, right? And takes a bit of thought. Would you agree? Okay. Why? What's the issue right off the bat? 1 to 2. Oh, oddly enough. Oddly enough. And the problem with 1 to 2 is you don't want your dog sailing over this jump on their way back to that jump. Because it also affects what happens from 3 to 4. When I started this with her, I set her up at a fairly decent angle, I thought, and I stayed pretty close to 2, and then all of a sudden she's over 3, and I was still behind 3, and so my path showed something completely different. And so where did she go?
Over the right.
She went over to the right jump, which actually made sense, because once I've sort of gotten myself out of the number 3 position, that's where I was pointing. So it's like, okay, that's not a good idea, right? So I had to have myself down the line a little bit further. So it's a matter of sort of adjusting her a little bit on this jump, or trusting what you've trained, right? Can I commit my dog to that jump, and essentially that jump with me being downfield a little bit, right? And you should be able to. And I could, I just didn't trust it at first. So essentially, I want a fairly significant angle on this jump, because you can't can sort of create a straight line too. But I'm not even interested in that straight line too, right? Because the dog has to turn immediately after completing that obstacle. But I need to know that they're going to be able to find that jump. So my purpose in putting the dog at an angle here has more to do with the fact that they need to know where that jump is than whether or not I care if they're hitting it straight or curved or whatever, okay? It's just that the angles here are so dramatic that you're not really going to have one without the other, as it were, right? So you are, in essence, setting up a straight line between one and two. My preferred place to lead out would be somewhere up here, all right? To be able to make sure that I can get this jump, this jump, this jump, and that jump, and in position to turn for that jump, right? There's a lot going on here in a very small sequence. So the first thing I have to do is cue the dog for that jump. So I would cue with my left hand, right? And as soon as I cue the dog for that jump, I'm going to take that same hand and just change its position, right? But I'm also going to change where I put my weight, right? And how I'm starting to travel. Because this jump, I need to put a fair bit of support on this jump, because with the dog at an angle, if I do anything even remotely like this, she's going to go right there, right? Because I can ask her to take this jump off that line just as easily as I can ask her that one. It all depends on how I present it, right? So, and presenting these obstacles, first of all, my dogs are taught to look for my hand, all right? She's done with me. Carly, you don't have to throw it, really. She can just sit and stare at it. Then she'll move on to something. But I'd rather. Well, then throwing it. People that don't have border collies are so cool. You know why I bring it to you?
I can throw it, they won't bring it.
That long to notice I was here.
My dogs are also taught to pay attention, right? And she gives me a long time before she finally goes, she's obviously not into me at all right now. So I'm going somewhere else. Anyway, that's nice. I should have you as a service dog on the plane. But she's not, I'm driving, so it's all good. Hands. Dog is taught to come to my hand. Always. All right? It's one of the things you're looking for all the time. So if my hand is over this jump, it says two things. Oh, she's coming back. It says,
don't throw it, Carla.
It says, take this jump and don't go any further that way.
Right, because they're going to come around and go that. They're
Right,
assuming you're going that way.
Correct, because they're looking for my hand, and the dog is also always looking for a path parallel to me. All right, but those are two things that have to be taught. Yeah, I saw her touch it. That's all it takes. She touched it.
I tried back behind me.
But she got you to touch.
Okay, we have to teach Carla.
I have my blinder on. So
Plus, every dog on the planet, dogs, cats, animals of any sort, the very person that doesn't want them, that is exactly who they will hone in on. And that's it. Anyway.
Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing, and very irritating to the person who doesn't really want it happening. But anyhow, so they're taught to look for my hand, to honor my hand, right? To always be seeking out a path parallel to mine. And with those two things, well, and you know the biggie, right, which is attention, right? Dog must pay attention. With those three things, that pretty much takes care of anything that needs to happen in between your obstacles, right? And the in between the obstacle part is the most difficult, is it not? Much harder than teaching the obstacles themselves. But getting your dog between the obstacles is tricky, right? But if I've got those three things, then it's a matter of putting them in the right order. Now, it didn't make this overall course any easier because everything's happening so fast. The body position, the hand signals, all of that, the timing of those cues has to be going like that, right? So, this hand supports this jump, then it supports this jump, then I start moving down this line, all right? If I move this way and my dog is looking for a path parallel to mine, that tells them this jump, not that jump, right? Because to get that jump, I'd have to move forward. So I start moving this way, over this jump, not too deep, because it really depends on how much impulsion, how much go, your dog's commitment point, etc., right? Because I don't want them carrying on to number 10, I want them to turn and come back in. So I'm going to push, and essentially at that point I'm going to start to move laterally, right? because we want, are we front crossing before 6? Yes. So we're going to put that in here, right? So I'm going to move laterally, pick the dog up off the jump, and rotate. And we're not going to go any farther than that, right? We're just going to do 1 through 6. Because then I think, hi you. Why don't you play with you? Then we open up a whole new can of worms, as it were, right? So, any questions? All right, take a moment.